All right. Well, welcome everyone. Thank you for being with me today. I'm so excited I get to share this information with you. What you're going to hear today is really a culmination of the past 2 years of my life and all the things that I really wish I had known when I said to my business partner, we should do a podcast. I think that'd be pretty easy. Um, and it was not. So between the two of us, we have done hours upon hours of our own classes, learning about how to grow our show, hours and hours of work to get to where we're at today. And so you guys are going to benefit from that in today's session. So I'm Kira Dorrian. I am the co-producer and co-host of one of the top parenting podcasts in the US called Raising Adults, Future Focused Parenting. I also hosted, there was only one season of it, but I hosted the Edge Conservation podcast as well. And so I started my life and career as an actor and trained at NYU at Tisch, moved to London and lived in London for 7 years and worked and performed there and started a voiceover career in London. When I moved back to Seattle and I knew that I was sort of shifting gears, I wanted to keep performing and I wanted to keep doing voiceover, but I didn't want to keep working the side jobs that I was working. And so I retrained as a mental health professional and started a private practice here in Seattle, and spent 10 years in private practice also doing voiceover. And at that time, in the midst of all that, I had twins, and they're now going to be 9, like next week, I think. So it was kind of like this duality I was living, where by day I was like this, mental health professional, and then like I'd have to slot in my voiceover jobs around my client. It was just a disaster. And so I got to a point where I wanted to move out of private practice and was finding myself doing a lot of parent coaching because I was also teaching childbirth classes. And so I know, bananas. Like I can't even remember what it's like to work one job. I haven't done that since I was 15. So I moved into full-time parent coaching and ended up working with my incredible partner, Dina Thayer, who's not with us today. And she doesn't I run all the technical stuff, which is what we're going to be talking about today, those nuts and bolts. She does a ton of other stuff that isn't related to those nuts and bolts. So it didn't make sense for her to be here with us. But the two of us kind of went, oh, we should start a podcast. That'd be easy. And as I said, it wasn't. And so it's been a wonderful slog, I would say, because we love working together and we love the content that we're creating. And we're almost 2 years in. So September 18th, I think, is our 2-year anniversary. And we are now monetized. We're on the top lists. We're where we wanted to be when we first started. So it's exciting. And for me, what's been kind of cool is I always had these two weird jobs that, like, at a party, what do you do? It was like, well, I'm a mental health professional and a voice actor. And podcasting actually like brought those two things together in a way that made sense. And so that's been really cool to kind of bring those two worlds together. So I do have that, side-by-side experience. So I'm excited to get to talk to you about it today. So I want to start. Again, I've said it a couple times, but I do want to say it again. Today is going to feel overwhelming because you're getting 2 years of knowledge in a 3-hour period. But what's really important to know is that this is actually, in a funny way, quite methodical. So if you can kind of wrap your brain around, like, I do this, and then I do this, and then I do this, and then, oh, I'm here. It won't feel as overwhelming. Think of it in tiny chunks. I take this step and this step and this step. And that's kind of how I laid out the class today, is looking at, what do we do first? Well, we talk about figuring out the concept of our show. And then once we have all that figured out, how do we actually launch a podcast? Like, what are those weird details that seem really strange and ambiguous right now? So just think of it that way, that you're not going to do this tomorrow. This isn't going to launch tomorrow. And I would actually recommend that you do take your time as you move through these steps, because that's what we didn't do. We just launched a podcast and ended up scrambling with a lot of these things, I'm going to share along the way, going, oh, shoot, we need that. Oh, shoot, we need that. And this feeling of stress. And it doesn't actually have to be that way if you're smart about it. So I would say really take your time and be smart about this, and you're going to have such a wonderful experience growing a podcast. Mm-hmm. So there's 5 essential ingredients to a successful podcast. These are the 5 things, and I did not make these up. These are some of the things we learned along the way. 5 things you need to have a truly successful podcast. The first one is great content. It can't be a shitty show, guys. Like, you have to be putting out something that people really want to listen to. What is it about what you're doing that's compelling? And if you think about the great podcasts we all love, think about something like Serial. I'm sure almost all of you have heard of or listened to Serial. It's compelling. I want to keep listening. I want more. So is your topic something that people are going to go, I want more? And more importantly, do you present it in a way that makes people want more? Because you can have fabulous content, but if you are bumbling and your cat is making noises in the background and you're pausing to, yes, those kinds of things. If you aren't presenting it in a way that's compelling, and audiences are fickle, like really, really fickle. So if you make that mistake once, they're probably going to let it go. If you're doing it 2-3 times, they're going to stop listening. So you really want to think about presenting this in the best way possible. So great content that's presented in a really clean, accessible, and compelling way. The second thing you need is great sound and editing. Now, this is not hard, and we're going to spend a whole chunk of today talking about editing. It's not hard, but it is essential, again, because no one wants to hear your doorbell ring. No one wants to hear you pause to say something to your partner behind you, right? And these are really easy things to edit out. So taking the time to truly edit a show together well makes a big difference. It makes it polished and professional. In terms of great sound, it's really as simple as a decent microphone and a quiet room. You don't need fancy equipment. You really, really don't. But we also don't want you to sound underwater. It shouldn't sound staticky and garbled and it coming in and out and the volume's all over the place and a mess. And again, these are really easy things to do, but it's the biggest mistake people make is bad sound quality. And then people are out. They want nothing to do with it. You also need great artwork for your cover design. So if you think about when you see a podcast, they've got a cover. If you scroll through, do yourself a favor on the break or something and scroll through and look at the different cover designs, and you will see the ones that are not so great. Okay. And it's the ones that look like someone took a PowerPoint presentation and like pieced together their thing, and that's their cover. So the art should be bright, bold colors, big letters. That's the other thing is sometimes you see, in fact, we made this mistake to start. Our original cover had these tiny little letters that looked beautiful when it was blown up on our screen. But when it's this big, it was not effective. No one could see what the show was called. So big logo, big letters, nice and clean, right? And that's where you spend some money. You spend on a decent mic and you spend on decent artwork. You get a graphic designer to do it, right? Or if you have some of those skills, but that's a place that's worth putting in time and money because you're thinking about how do I even get people to listen to my show? The first point of entry is that little square, okay? You also need consistency. This is almost maybe the most important thing aside from great content is consistency. You're going to pick a day of the week that you release. You're going to release every single week on that day without fail. If you take a break, you're going to tell your audience that you're going to take a break. Again, they're fickle. So they get used to Mondays is, that's when we release. Mondays is Raising Adults Day. And if we're just not there for a couple weeks, they forget about us. And we know this because we took a break once. We took a 6-week break and we lost like 20, 30 subscribers because people just, they forgot about us. So it is something you need to be thinking about. And you can also cover your breaks. We do this a lot with replays so that you're still releasing something. And you can be, and we're going to talk about this too, but you can be very ahead of yourself. There's no shame in being weeks and weeks ahead of yourself so that if you get sick or something happens, you know that that thing is still releasing. But it is really important to be consistent. And then the final piece of the puzzle is you need good promotion, social media. You need ways of telling people that your podcast exists. And so we're going to talk about all of those different components today, but those really are the key. If you do nothing else, you need those 5 things. So